Well, if you watched the Milwaukee Bucks and the Memphis Grizzlies play tonight, you saw probably one of the worst officiated games in the NBA so far this season. The Milwaukee Bucks lost this one by a final score of 116 to 113, but if you really look back on it, you look back on some of the calls in this game, you realize that the Bucks really got the short end of the stick here. They didn't play their best game. They were actually down 15 at one point late in the third quarter. They ended up coming back and taking a 5-point lead late in the fourth until Memphis made a run. Down the stretch, however, the officials made some pretty horrible calls, including three that stand out in particular. The first one was on it was a out-of-bounds call on Malcolm Brogdon when it was clear that he was shoved out of bounds. It should have been a foul on the Grizzlies. Instead, the Grizzlies get the ball. Mike Budenholzer did not like that, and he had some exceptional things to say. I do not believe he actually swore or used any profanity towards the NBA official. However, he still got teed up and was tossed, as that was the second technical of the night. The officials really were pretty bad throughout the entire game. There was a pretty bad call earlier in the game that forced Budenholzer to get another technical as well. He was ejected from the game. And then the third and final bad call was the flagrant foul called on Ersan Ilyasova. Now, a lot of people might disagree with that being a bad call, but really, I mean, they called it a flagrant, and they gave the Grizzlies a free throw and the ball, and I mean, even though Conley missed the free throw, it's still, I mean, it should have been a 5-second call. It really should have. The Bucks should have gotten the ball down to with 2.9 left, and they ended up calling a flagrant instead of a 5-second on Ersan Ilyasova. He had his arm wrapped around the waist of, I think it was Mike Conley. I think so. I can't remember for sure, but it felt like a pretty brutal call. It looked to me like a common foul, just a regular common foul at best. You could even make the debate that it wasn't even a foul at all. I do think that it was a foul, however, when you look back on it. But a flagrant foul, I don't know. I heard something about a freedom to move rule that was implemented by the NBA, that this was a restriction of that by Ilyasova on his the player he was defending. I can't remember. It might have been Conley. I'm not sure, but they called that a flagrant foul. First of all, if that is honestly a flagrant foul, then I'm not really sure what the NBA is doing in that department, because if you can get a flagrant foul call for literally touching a guy on the shoulder or on the waist, then I'm not really sure what basketball is anymore. And in reality, I mean, the officials were really bad tonight. There was a lot of really, really weak contact calls against the Bucks. There was a lot of calls, they maybe got the fingernail on the wrist of a player. It was just a horribly, horribly officiated game. The Bucks still only lost by 3, still scored 113 points. They didn't play their best game tonight. They still should have won the basketball game, though. It was a very tight contest throughout. The Bucks made that run at the end. But they really should have won the basketball game. And if it wasn't for the officials, and this is one of the few times I will ever say it. You guys know how much I rarely blame officials for losses. I rarely do it. But tonight was an exception. The Bucks probably win this game if it isn't for the horrible officiating. Obviously, losing Budenholzer for the final few minutes of the game hurt as well. So yeah, it was a very poor display of officiating, and the NBA really should be ashamed. I'm really interested to see what the 2-minute report says tomorrow or in the weekend or whenever they release their next one. But it was a pretty badly officiated game, and I mean, the NBA's got to clean it up. I mean, this is really rough to watch. I've seen a lot of really bad officiating thus far this season and last season, and really the past few years, it's just been really, really hard to watch from the NBA officials. Like, I mean, they're very, very inconsistent. I mean, you get the Bucks getting called, in this game in particular, you got the Bucks getting called for some really touch fouls, and then you have Giannis getting to the rim and getting hacked and still not getting the call. That didn't happen that often in this game. They did give Giannis, for the most part, the benefit of the doubt, but there was still a lot of calls where it was like, how is that not an and one? How is that not this? And it was pretty rough to watch tonight, and I'm pretty disappointed in how things turned out. And this is just another example of officiating, like putting themselves in the spotlight. The officials. I didn't tune into this game to watch the officials eject people and make horseshit calls. I tuned into this game to watch the Bucks and Grizzlies play basketball, and they did and the result was affected by the officiating, and I'm really disappointed in that. And I mean, I am a Bucks fan. I might be a little biased in this area, but I mean, it was really bad tonight. And I mean, if it was against the Grizzlies, I wouldn't be afraid to admit it, that the Bucks got favorable calls if it was in fact that situation. But it was really against the Bucks tonight. I'm not really sure why they were giving so many calls to the Grizzlies, but the Bucks got one stolen from them tonight. They fall to 10-4. The Grizzlies improved to 8-5. The Bucks will continue their homestand. This was the first loss of the season at home at Pfizer Forum. The Bucks will continue their homestand this Friday at 8:30 on ESPN against the Chicago Bulls. They welcome Jabari Parker back to Milwaukee for the first time since he last played for them this past spring. So that'll be an entertaining game to watch, and I'm pretty excited to react to that one after that one is over. But until then, guys, thanks for watching. Be sure to leave a like and subscribe, and as always, go Bucks.